Hey everyone, this is Chris.
And Lorenzo.
And welcome to our Best of Saturday series. Now that we have hundreds of episodes, we get a lot of listeners asking us where to start.
So we'll be selecting some of our most popular episodes to share each Saturday from our years of podcasting. We hope you enjoy it.
No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, I'd like to talk a little bit about the power of peer accountability. So my kids are doing swim lessons, and I was noticing we did a kind of a little switch where we went from these individual lessons to group lessons. And the individual lessons they were doing okay. You know, my son is not the first one to jump in and get things going when it comes to swim lessons. And so we went to a group lesson, and what happened with him was just amazing at how quickly he excelled compared to when it was a one-on-one lesson. When a one-on-one lesson with the instructor, it was he was doing whatever he could to stall or get out of doing things. When it was a lesson with several other children his age, all it took was seeing other people his age start to swim on their own. And there was this light bulb that clicked on in him where it was almost like, I don't want to be the one guy not doing this.
Sure.
And so he was all over it. And that's kind of how he learned to swim. And now he's a fish. You know, now he swims all over the place. We have him in water polo. We have him in swimming several days a week. But when we were doing those swim lessons, that's what it took. It took the peer accountability of seeing this group of people that he felt like he was supposed to be a part of. And he wanted to make sure that he was not left behind. And I don't think that would have happened as fast. He wouldn't have learned as fast if we had just continued to stick with the one-on-one lessons. And it made me think of a lot of parallels between that and my work life, my business life, and how much more likely people are to respond to literally anything, whether it be something new, and a new initiative, a new way of doing things, a new organizational objective, whatever it is. People, I think, are more likely to respond when the structure or the objective or the movement comes from their peers as opposed to from their boss. And I'm wondering if you've seen this in your own personal life. If you agree with it, do you think there's times when it's got to be from the boss, not from the peers? Or do you think this is kind of like the peer accountability really is the end all be all of motivation?
My gut reaction is that it is more motivating when you have your peers or a team, that are challenging you to do something or that are a part of a larger movement. However, bosses are very motivating as well, especially because they can own your career.
Sure.
They can be the decision maker in regards to if you get to come back tomorrow or not. So it kind of depends on how you look at it. Let's just take the idea that there is a good team. Maybe they're not a great team. Maybe it's, not spectacular, but you've got a good team of people, and you've got, those that kind of excel, and you've got maybe those that either shouldn't be on the team or kind of just barely pull their own weight, or, kind of lack and let other people pull their weight. I think in a collective of a team like that, when it comes to peer accountability, that is the single thing, in my opinion, that will move that team for the better. When you have an environment like that, I think collectively the boss can do so much and do so much to make things consistent, make things fair, kind of give good clarity from a direction standpoint. But at the end of the day, the person sitting next to you or standing next to you or in the cubicle next to you, or that's just assigned to your team. Many times, teams nowadays are virtual. But if you know that there's a collective goal, what's motivating your peer to either challenge you or push you isn't because they're the boss and they said so. It's because they want to win as a team. They want everybody to get better. And so I think that people take that type of feedback and that conversation a lot more serious. I've just seen it in all levels of all types of teams, is that when a peer-to-peer conversation happens, there tends to be more action. People tend to take it more seriously, and it doesn't have kind of that tinge of because I'm the boss leader standpoint that usually happens in those conversations.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. But it seems like when that happens, they're not doing it because of some sense of what's right. They're doing it because they don't want to get left behind. And so in essence, it's like I don't want to be singled out as the one person not doing this thing in a space where 3 or 4 other people who are my peers are doing it. So I'm going to do it. I know that was the motivation behind my son doing swim lessons, and I've seen it in people at work where the person who is the one least likely to perform kind of gets on board reluctantly because they don't want to be the one person who's not doing it. And I'd like to believe that it's from a sense of nobility, not wanting to let the team carry him or her, wanting to make sure that they pull their own weight because they're friends with their peers and that they want to make sure that they are not, they're doing right by their peers. But I can't help but sometimes feel that it's just because they don't want to get left behind.
Yeah, there's definitely an element of peer pressure per se, right? Where again, it's behavior or action due to what others are doing, and whether they not like in the swimming example, whether they they could have pushed him. They could have been like, "Hey, come on, like you got to swim too. We're coming, like we're all getting in. Let's all swim together." That didn't necessarily happen. He just saw it himself and didn't want to be the one kind of left out and wanted to be like everybody else. And I think that's that could be a healthy element of peer pressure. And it's one of the reasons why I enjoyed playing sports on teams. Is that there is this feeling of togetherness, there's this feeling of loyalty, there is this feeling of like you don't want to let down your teammates, so you're going to push yourself harder, or you're going to think more clearly. You're going to react in a way that's more beneficial to something bigger than yourself. So there's a lot of value and I believe in team sports and teams because it builds that sense of loyalty, relationship, and pride. So yeah, I absolutely believe that peer pressure is a piece of it. But I also think though that like if the relationships are good, like I think peer pressure it may be enough to spark things happening, but if the relationships are good amongst the peers, then it becomes, the person, instead of feeling pressure to not be the one left out, they feel the responsibility to be the one who's adding value to the team. And the way that I've seen it play out in kind of the professional world many times is sometimes in development. You've got peers of people, so if you're a leader of leaders, you have leaders that are in different places in regards to their development and their professional and personal maturity, their background, their experience, that type of thing. And so in a perfect, fantastic environment, what you want to build is a team where people have good enough relationships where they have each other's backs. They have some loyalty to them. They want to take care of one another. Yes, people get frustrated. Yes, people and leaders, peers do dumb things sometimes or things that they shouldn't do, or they're just lazy that day. They're just doing enough to get by. Those are all things that happen. But I believe that when peer accountability really, really works well, is when there's that loyalty and that relationship there amongst each other, and you've kind of got each other's backs, and you're kind of nudging the person along, like Luke, I need you to get this done. Like, hey, like you're letting the team down. Like I need you to step up and perform this way, because not just are you maybe causing a frustration on my side or causing me to be questioning what you're doing, but you're also causing the team to be less effective or less productive. So like, I'm a fan of, and probably because, like yourself, spent a lot of time in the assistant manager ranks, right? I love the players-only meetings, the ones where it's like everybody's in the room but the big boss, because then it's like you get some real transparent conversation. You can challenge each other, and you can do it in a way where it's not like I'm telling on you, because like it's not like the big boss is here type of thing. So like for me, when I think about peer accountability, peer relationships, and all that type of stuff, I do my best to make that space for a team. Make sure that they have time together where I'm not in the room, because I want them to have those types of conversations, because I know how powerful they were for me when I was a leader coming through teams.
Right. Well, I would say that you need to have a good relationship with your team in order to be able to do that. Otherwise, it comes off like you're leaving the room and one of the people in the room is gonna fill you in. One person in that room is going to be singled out as the one who's going to go back to you and say what was going on, unless you have a great relationship with that team and they understand that you're doing it for them.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too, it's like it's how do you set up that space, right? Again, it's one of those things where I am transparent. I'm upfront about it. right? I'm transparent about it. I'm gonna say like, hey, you know what, we got a meeting. Like, I want you guys to handle that, right? Like, I want you guys to be able to, put your plan together, have the conversation, build through the strategy. I'm more, and I'm more than expecting that you'll have differences of opinion, kind of work through all of that, and then the next time all of you get together, I'll be in that meeting, and then we can collectively talk about all of it. So you not being there, making sure that they understand why you are not there, as a leader is just as important as not showing up and then hoping that they will have those conversations, right? You want to tell them that I'm doing this deliberately. I'm giving you guys space, and I'm giving this team space because I want you to have real conversations, and I want you to work through opinions, and I want you to work through ideas, and I want you to battle it out a little bit, because I know that when I'm in the room, some of you will not speak up, some of you will not want to get somebody else in trouble, some of you will not say how you're feeling exactly. Like, I get that. I understand that because I've also been in that space before. I want you to have that space, and I want to not be in the room because of that, so that when I do get into the room or I come into the next meeting, we can kind of discuss where we're at strategically, and you can work through those types of personal relationships or professional opinions.
Right. I think there are a lot of leaders out there who they try to be a part of the team instead of leading the team. And I think it can be a really difficult transition, especially if the leader of the team was once part of the team and they got promoted and now they're running the team. It's like they want all the responsibility of leading the team, but they don't want to leave behind the good feelings and the camaraderie and the kumbaya moments they had with their peers. And in one essence, that's a symbol of a really healthy team, is one that was able to promote from within and respect a leader that got promoted, and that leader misses those moments because it means those moments happened when they were part of that team. But I think it's really difficult for a leader to maintain that. In fact, it's almost impossible for a leader to not only maintain the authority they need to lead, but to also be a part of those moments as a team still, without killing those moments for the team to continue on their own. And so I think some really great leaders out there are the ones that really know how to let go. They know how to say, my role is different now. It doesn't mean that I'm not friends with these people. It doesn't mean I don't care about these people. It means that there will be things that they do amongst themselves that I am not part of by virtue of the fact that I am the boss. And that is healthier than trying to include yourself into this group of people that you used to be a part of, out of some sense of showing that, hey, I'm still one of you, I'm still part of you. Well, no, you're not. You're not one of them anymore. And the more you try to be, I think the more it hurts that collaborative process.
And it can be really difficult, especially if the role that you're in as a leader, like you're with your team every day.
Right.
In certain jobs and areas where it's the same office, it's the same store, it's the same place, like whatever that is, when you are working side by side with them, the majority of the time, the instant attraction is to want to be in all those meetings and to be a part of all those things and kind of keep your hands in whatever the businesses that you're into. So it can be really, really difficult. I think also the idea is that you continue the peer relationship piece, but you do it at the next level up. So now you build those relationships, you have those conversations, with your current peers. But again, that can be difficult as you continue to move up the career ladder because there become less and less of them. And, their availability to talk to you, whether it's, again, the same office, the same floor, the same store, or via phone, whatever that looks like, it's not as available as it is when you are, with a team in the same place working together daily. So I think you just have to be a lot more proactive and purposeful with building some of those relationships that way, having that level of dialogue and conversation. There's not a day that goes by where I don't personally speak with at least 2 of my peers, and there's only 4 of us total, right? Like, so for me, I'm one of 4. And every single day I speak with at least 2 of them. Just because, again, like it's keeping that, that relationship, talking through things that are going on, checking in on strategies, but maintaining that level of communication and relationship is what for me fills that void. Right? Because it's tough to go from being a part of a team, really enjoying that work, knowing what happens in that room, understanding the dynamics, getting kind of the excitement of, building a strategy, talking through it, challenging it, like all of that stuff that can happen in those rooms with those teams is a lot of fun. And it's kind of what many of us, when you stay within a certain industry, whatever that is, like you kind of, you professionally grow up in that environment, you know exactly what's going on the other side of the door. So it's extremely, difficult to not want to pop in and be a part of all those things. And then you do find yourself on the outside when you kind of hear some of the inside jokes or the laughing or the this or the that, and you're like, yeah, like totally missed it, wasn't in there for it. But it's, but again, but that's okay, because you want to be able to provide that environment and that opportunity for that team the same way that it was provided to you.
Yeah, I think that process you just talked about speaking with your peers every day, one or two of them every single day, I bet there are times when you've done that when you could have found out the answer without talking to them. You could have, pulled up a website or a company policy or whatever, and it's not about just knowing the answer. The process of how you get to the answer is equally important, if not more important, than just having the answer, because that process is what drives the relationship. Knowing the answer is just what lets you get your job done. But the relationship that required to be there, that you had to leverage and that you had to make sure that person knew, you were kind of subconsciously letting that person know that, hey, I look at you as a resource. When I call you and you have an answer for me, I look at you as a resource. I want you to look at me the same way. I'll be a resource for you. And there's something powerful about that you don't get by just looking up the answer in a book or on a website or just knowing it. And I think the leaders that do that well, the ones that leverage that even when they don't necessarily need it all the time, those are the ones that strengthen those relationships. And then when they do actually need it, and there is no policy, there is no book, there's a lot of ambiguity around something, and you have to kind of navigate those waters. Those are the ones that are able to navigate through it better, because they have this group of people that look at them as a peer and that kind of they help them into the fold, and they all solve it together.
In full transparency, I would tell you 75 to 80% of my conversations with my peers are, how was your day? What's going on? Right? Like,
Right.
What are you getting into? Or, it is actually not a request for an answer or to talk about any strategy. It is specifically to say, like, hey, what's going on? How's your day going so far? What ends up happening in that personal relationship is we start to discuss our days and the work that we're doing, and then we get into talking about business,
Right.
and some of those strategies and that type of thing. And again, but when it comes to the pure accountability piece, what's nice about it is that I have caught myself many times talking to somebody on the phone and say, hey, what's going on? How's your day? And they start rambling off some of the things they're working on. And I go, oh man, I got to get that done too. Or, oh man, that's a great idea, man. I need to get off the phone right now and get that turned in. Like, it's happened a lot of times. So for me, there's also the element of peer accountability, where when I'm just asking people how they're spending their time, many times it either, reinforces how I spend my time, or it challenges me on where I should be spending my time. So I get, energy, and I get motivation out of that as well.
I completely agree. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1 minute hack.
The 1 minute hack.
Okay, for this episode's 1 minute hack, here's what I'd like for you to do. Think about the next couple of meetings that you have coming up, and I want you to purposefully dedicate 25% of the time to allowing your team to get together collectively without you. Now, to make this successful, you're going to have to do a little bit of pre-work. So on your next upcoming meeting, I want you to discuss this and say, hey, in my time as a leader, I have found great value in working with peers, in learning from others, and having a chance to have conversations without maybe the boss in the room, so that strategies can be talked through, opinions can be talked through, and nobody feels like they may have an opinion that may be, not favored, or it could feel like maybe you're telling on somebody or that type of thing. So give it a little bit of preface, but tell the team, this is what I want to do going forward for the next couple of meetings. And I want to dedicate specific time to allow all of you to talk through some of these things without me in the room, because I know as a leader, when I step in, many times the dynamic changes. So have that meeting, have that conversation at your next meeting, and preface the meetings coming forward. Then, as a leader, what I'd like for you to do is give them that time. I feel it's probably about 25% of the time would be good for the first or second meeting. So if it's an hour-long meeting, give them 15 minutes. If it's a full-day meeting, give them a couple of hours. It may seem like a lot of time, but when it comes to your team getting on the same page, collectively wanting to drive strategy and working through personal dynamics and relationships, there's no more important time than how they work collectively together and how they feel about each other and building some of that loyalty.
Yeah, I think it's a great 1-minute hack. I also think it's important that you don't come in and try to debrief that time when you get back. All right, so what'd you guys talk about? It's not
Yep.
about that. It's their time, and then you move on with the next part of the agenda, almost like it didn't happen. The more you reinforce that you're not going to come back and try to debrief it, the more confident they will be in kind of being vulnerable with each other and kind of bearing what they're really feeling. Because the first couple of times, if you don't have a strong culture of this, they're not going to. They're going to talk about things that don't matter at all. It's not going to be business related. They're gonna shoot the breeze. They're going to talk about their personal lives, and that's okay too, because those are the things that build relationships amongst your team. So don't try to get involved. This is you're basically saying, I'm taking myself out of this. I want to be part of this team, but it's also equally important that you as a team are able to function without me in the room. And so this is your time for you.
Yep, absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.